The mailman doesn't deliver on a Sunday.
If you don't like that, you don't like NBA basketball.
Anthony for three. Bang! J.R. Smith! We just saw men fly. LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Cleveland! This is for you!
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast. I'm Ronan Gaine. Joining me as always, Chris Nambu. Thank you so much for making this your first podcast for NBA coverage. It's been a while since we've recorded, but a lot has gone down around the NBA. We're going to get through all of it. We're also going to be doing a fun tier list of what we think are some of the best trades that have gone down of all time. But before we get into that, just want to remind everybody, if you are on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave a comment. Let us know what you think. If you are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave that 5-star review. You do that, we'll keep on producing that content. Chris, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm back in the cold. I'm back up in Boston after being in Georgia for a little bit. Just beautiful driving through the snow. I've been really looking forward to it. More so, even more looking forward to talking to you after Anunoby and the Knicks. Why are we talking about anything else? I know that you just want to be talking about the Knicks. I see the smile on your face.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta rep the brand. I think the whole time we've been doing this podcast, I think the Knicks are now the 3rd seed. This is probably the highest either of our teams have been since we've been doing this podcast. So that's
the Bulls were the 1 seed for 2 months. I'll remember that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, I'll give you that. But at this moment, the Knicks are thriving. Well, before we get into them, let's just go around the NBA. A lot has happened since we've last recorded. We saw Joel Embiid drop 70. Also had 18 rebounds, 5 assists, 24-41 from the field. Only made 1 3-pointer on that run. And then Luka went and outdid him just a few days later, 73 points. 25 or 33 from the field, 8 3-pointers made, just an absolutely insane performance. We saw 62-point games from Devin Booker and Karl Anthony Towns that weren't good enough for wins, which just seems insane. We saw Adrian Griffin get fired. Clearly, he lost a dressing room. And just want to say, sometimes I get things right. Sometimes on this podcast, we turn out to be correct. It was a weird one. Doc has been hired. Where do we go with that? The Knicks have won 8 straight games. They just destroyed a back-to-back without Randall, without OG. Yeah, it was against the Jazz and the Hornets, but who cares? They're the 3rd seed, and the Bucks, we are coming for you. Clippers have stayed hot. They blew out the Celtics in a really impressive performance. We had another classic, the double OT, LeBron and Steph. It just never gets old. We got to enjoy these moments while we can. The Miami Heat made a trade. They have added Terry Rozier, but they have lost 7 straight games. And I also want to say that load management, that question has come up again of late with a few things that have gone over the last few days, and we'll definitely get to that. But of any of those points, is there anywhere you want to hop in first?
I mean, we call this Coast to Coast for a reason. It's such a whirlwind of everything that's going on, and we definitely got to talk Doc. We got to talk Heat. We got to talk Knicks. And you just mentioned the OT thriller between Curry and LeBron. And I want to go macro a little bit. Let's talk about them real quick. Looking at 15-day trends across the league. Right now, the Warriors are in the midst of a 5-10 streak. Lakers are 7-8, but somehow Lakers are getting the most negative press out of anybody. And I guess we've just accepted the Warriors are depressing. But right now, let's stick with the Warriors for a quick second. They have the worst defensive rating by any team in the stretch. Give me 124.9 points per possession. And this is a stretch where teams are giving up 70 points, 60 points, 70 points. I don't know. Maybe this is the post Christmas break. No one wants to play defense. But some of these performances have just been insane. Half of Luka's layups just felt like open layups. No one was at the rim. But I mean, hey, that's the NBA in January for you. Now we look at the Warriors. 4 out of the 10. They're 4 games out of the 10 seed. They are 2 games behind the Rockets, and the Rockets are still as hungry as ever. They don't have a Siakam to look for in the market. Don't know who they could possibly look after, and it just feels like they're not going anywhere. Then we look over pretty close by. Lakers are 7-8 last 15. LeBron's frustrated. Wood is tweeting. Ham is telling everyone to man up. He's still got his hands in his pockets. I can't go a single day on Twitter without seeing a video of him with his hands in his pockets, and it's become this amazing like subculture of Twitter of like that's just one of my favorite memes now to see. But man, the leadership there is just it's gone. And when the trade market with that, does the DeJounte Murray trade actually move the needle? We'll talk about that in a bit, who's actually still on the market. But I bring up these two teams because their Lakers are not quite yet on the outside as the Warriors are, but they're two teams with two players that are still at the very top of their game. I mean, LeBron is going to be 40, and he's still going to be dropping 30 points on people's heads. And they're entering an era where they've pretty much run out of time. Where do we go with the Warriors and Lakers, man? This is such a weird period for two teams that don't have a lot of options left. The market doesn't look great. And I guess I'll just pose it like this. Like, who are you buying will actually be competitive in the playoffs? The Warriors or Lakers or neither? That's also an option.
I mean, I'm really tempted to say neither. I just say that I didn't think the Lakers were savable last year either, and they managed to make some smart moves to get the job done. So I guess I'd have to say I have a little bit more faith in them. But like watching the last, like obviously that the Warriors game was an unbelievable game to watch. Like LeBron just in the zone, Steph the same, just going toe to toe, just trying to get the best out of each other. And then you go and watch them against the Rockets and the Hawks, and they're just pathetic. They never really look like winning at all, and it's sad to see them out on the floor like that. So I don't really think I could like really go and say, yeah, for sure that they're going to make the difference either way. Like I'm leaning towards saying neither, to be totally honest with you. But at the same time, Steph Curry is still Steph Curry. If the young guys can start to contribute more, Wiggins can get back on track, Kuminga can continue this hot run of form that he's on, that changes the trajectory for the Warriors. Having Green back as that playmaking piece. But I still think they both need to make moves at the deadline if they're really going to change things.
So Warriors, they won't have Siakam. Who fixes it? Bridges? Murray? Do they go all in on Lowry? I don't know if they have enough to get Lowry. Bojan, Capella, Claxton, those are some like maybe more realistic names. Has anyone like been like, okay, that is something because they need defense. They need someone to actually play basketball, unlike Andrew Wiggins, which that is the biggest piece of it. And everyone's talking about like how bad he's played, and like to really make it make sense in my head, I've had to remember the fact that the Warriors do not win their last championship without Andrew Wiggins, just straight up.
Mm-hmm.
Like that may be an obvious thing, but Andrew Wiggins was like the galvanizing X factor behind, he was the second player behind Curry. And they don't have that. And I think Siakam was really the only other guy who does that. Bridges doesn't seem like he's on quite that level. I mean, maybe Murray is, but he doesn't really fit that. It seems like there's nothing there. Whereas the Lakers, I feel like I'm curious. Maybe DeJounte Murray does move the needle. Maybe that is a more steady force on offense for D'Lo, and defensively, like they can really rally around that. Whereas the Warriors have always been this very unique machine. Like you have that super rare like car that you don't have parts for anywhere, and if it breaks down, it's like where are you gonna find a replacement part? Like you can't really replace the Warriors system that they've built unless you just go full in on, all right, Steph, we're gonna get you a big man, run 30 pick and rolls a game. But comparing the two, I feel like I gotta go with Lakers because I can't see any names that could really fix what the Warriors are missing, which is honestly just themselves.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think unfortunately for them, they're on the wrong side of the dynasty years. And unfortunately, it's not really something you can recreate. It's something like the way it is. They've had unbelievable success, so much more success than so many players have had in this league. And unfortunately, it just has to play out how it's going to play out. They just have to keep on going with it. You got to milk it for all that it's worth, all that they can get out of these guys for the next few years. I think that's the most likely outcome for this Warriors team. They just got to milk it for all it's worth, and then in a maybe 3-4 years time, when there's no more Steph, then you look at changing things, because it's not really possible to be too smart here. You think they can turn Draymond and Clay, they're not at the same level as they were, they could trade them into something. It's not going to work. I don't think there's anything to really push the needle back for the Warriors. That 2022 title was their last hurrah, and I think there's nothing that's gonna really change things for them now. They're gonna be a playing team probably at best for the remaining years.
Yeah, that right now that's the reality. And who knows if they had made moves. I mean, they have really not bridged the dynasty and the future like they planned they would. But hey, I mean, if they are able to get off of Wiggins and they're able to like clear space, maybe this is something where they end up being a player in free agency if they can get off of some salary. But hey, maybe LeBron James just goes and signs with the Warriors. That would be fun.
Yeah.
But staying negative, should we hop to the East? Because you mentioned the Heat. So they're on a 7-game losing streak. The individual defense looks bad. Fun fact, nobody on this team except for Bam Adebayo is in the top 100 in defensive win shares, and Bam is 22nd. And per usual, he looks tired. Like halfway through the season, he hits the wall, and it's happening again. And they just look disinterested defensively. Rozier still is, let's give him more than 10 games before people panic about him not being good. Like he just got there. Apparently, he hasn't even done like a full team practice with them yet. So just give him a second, please. But in this stretch, the 15-game stretch, their offense has been held under 100 3 times while everyone else is scoring 1 million points. And Terry doesn't look like he wants to play defense yet. I mean, he's been in Charlotte for a minute. It's going to take him some time to find it, but who knows if he still plays. Defense, who knows? I don't know. But here's my question. Do they still need to make a move for the deadline? And if they don't, do you feel like their roster construction as it stands, not having enough bigs behind Bam, maybe not having enough perimeter defense that doesn't give up as much offense like they have in Highsmith, There's a lot of variations of 5 different players right there. They have all offense or all defense, it seems, in some of their wings. Do they have enough right now to still be a contender?
No, but they do because they're the Heat. The answer is no, but I said that last year too, and they went to the NBA Finals. So I just can't say no. Like watching them, they don't look great at all. They again, it always feels like this happens in the regular season. It feels like Bam is there for all the games. Jimmy misses extended time. Hero misses extended time, and it kind of all just comes down on Bam, and then he starts to look tired. And then the other guys are struggling to get back to form. Like Jimmy's not really playing at the level that we expect from Jimmy Butler yet because he's been in and out with injuries and stuff like that. And Hero's been of a similar sort of ilk. So looking at them and watching the games and seeing the record, you're like, no, I think this is them falling off. But I thought that last year too. And Eric Spoelstra is just such an intelligent coach that he knows how to get the most out of these guys. He knows how to beat other teams. It's not how he makes his team win. He knows how to beat other teams. That's where Spoelstra just really flourishes.
Yeah, it's funny because for like every single other team, the conversation would be, you need to develop a pattern of success and then carry that forward into the playoffs. Like you can't, like when we were talking about the Nets, when they had the big 3, like you can't just suck and then expect to all of a sudden figure it out in the playoffs. But somehow that's the Heat. And it is ironic too that we talk on and on and on about Heat culture, but seemingly part of Heat culture is not caring about winning games through the middle of the season. Which, I mean, if you ask any of the players, all the players are like, we're mad, we want to win games. But then on the floor, like it looks like there's not that same intensity, that same passion that's there. And they haven't been like an elite statistically defensive team until it really matters. But yeah, I'm glad I had to ask you that question because you've asked me this question like 3 times already, and I'm like, yes, they'll be fine. Yes, they'll be fine. But it's getting to a point. I mean, it's that 7-game losing streak, and we'll see how it ends up. One tiny little nuanced part of it that I'm gonna pay attention to is how do the rotations work with Hero, Duncan Robinson, and Terry Rozier if Terry still doesn't play defense? Because I imagine Terry is like scary Terry, Celtics, where he is a menace on the perimeter. He's really getting around screens, really closing out, and he's very, very, very disciplined defender on the perimeter. If that's not him, if he's not a guy that's creating turnovers, he's not a guy that's getting up in people's chests, like how is that going to work with those 3 on the perimeter, and they're going to need to figure out how to stagger them for sure.
You would say that the Heat is probably the best team to get that out of him
Yes.
if it's still there.
Absolutely. That's exactly my thought process, where I'm not going to worry about it right now. It's too early. You talked about Luka. He dropped his 70 plus point game, 73-point game. He's averaging 41 in this 15-game stretch. You would think they're just blowing teams out and they're just like on a big win stretch. No, they're just a game over 500. They lost 3 games straight against Lakers, Phoenix, and Boston. And in this stretch, they're giving up 121.3 points per 100. That's tied with the Blazers near the bottom of the league. And we've always talked about, wanting to see defense out of the Mavs and seeing some of the personnel changes they've had this season. Maybe they got enough, but it seems like they don't. Are you buying or are you selling this notion that, they still don't have the defense to be true contenders?
I'm probably buying a couple of shares, but not fully because they have been really injured. Like, have we seen Luka, Kyrie, Lively, Williams? Have they played like 5, 6, 7 games in a row together? I genuinely don't think that they have. I feel like the injuries have been a big issue for them. Not to say if they were healthy, they'd definitely be a lot better. But we've seen them be like they were like 6, 7 games above 500 at one point this season. They've been able to go on runs. They've got the offense. They've got a few good role players. They've got a few like kind of random guys that are delivering in a big way for them. But I don't know that Grant Williams has had the impact that they necessarily wanted. And it definitely does still feel like they need to get another piece. As much as Lively is definitely a future piece for them, I think they need to find a legit 3-and-D wing. Like more, maybe we don't. Is Grant Williams that? Maybe another version of Grant Williams, maybe a better defensive version of Grant Williams, a better 3-point shooting version of Grant Williams. If there was any way in the world they could maybe find a way to get a Cam Johnson or a Mikal Bridges, I think that'd be a move for them. I don't see how the hell they could do it, but that's the kind of guy that I'm thinking they need to really kind of turn the needle for them.
Yeah, I really just can't, like, on a super side note, I just can't imagine that the Nets aren't sellers of the deadline, because like their players solve the equation for so many contenders, and the Nets are not going to contend this year. They're just not. And it seems like the vibe is that the Nets are not really. I mean, Mikal is not the guy. He's a guy, and on any contending team, second, third best player, like your championship odds are so much higher. But their names just keep coming up and up, and you'd have to imagine the price keeps going up. And in a year, this year, where like it's really the championship odds, like you don't really know who's going to win it. Nuggets for sure, Celtics, yeah, but like everyone has an argument for it. It seems like the year that the Nets would sell one of those two. Staying in the West, did you mention the Clippers? Because
Did mention the Clippers.
They still look good in the last 15 games. Man, their trio is going crazy. Kawhi Leonard averaging 23, Paul George averaging 23, Harden averaging 16, Harden's averaging 10 assists per game, and Leonard 50, 40, 90, and Paul George all of a sudden knows how to shoot again, over 40% from 3. And they look like they've created a balance between the 3 of them. They're not all dropping crazy scores every single game, but the way that they've oscillated between those 3 options, the way that they've created advantages together, they look pretty good. They have the best offense in the league in these 15 games. They beat Phoenix twice, beat OKC, they ended Boston their second loss. Buy or sell it. This is the best trio in the league right now and moving forward.
I mean, you have to buy in terms of a trio. I think you got to buy because the main thing is it's Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is back looking like Kawhi Leonard, and when Kawhi Leonard looks like Kawhi Leonard, that makes the Clippers title contenders. Simple as that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's such a simple thing, but like the way he's confidently getting in the paint now too, and he's not settling for jumpers, and he looks even more confident in the post, and his stroke is like really shooting 44.8% from 3 right now on 4.5 attempts. Like he could be. I mean, Jokic is the best player in the West. Jokic is best player in the West. But like when you remember like guys you hand the ball to at the end of a game and you want to win in the playoffs, like Kawhi is that guy.
Mhm.
And there's I'd take him over Steph in the clutch. I'd take him over LeBron in the clutch. I'd I'd really question if I'm taking him or Durant in the clutch. I'm still taking Jokic in the clutch, but like when it comes down to like your game sevens, those tight games and playoffs like that, if he's there and he's at this level, we've forgotten about it because we haven't seen him in a minute. But it's gonna show up, and I think that we did not talk enough about the. I mean, I thought I did, but I don't think we talked enough about the Clippers if they put it together. But it's happening. Yeah,
I
they're
will just
21 and
say, if
0.
you're going to take Kawhi over LeBron, I think you can take Kawhi over Kevin Durant as well
In the cl-
in the clutch.
yeah,
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you
in the
can.
clutch, in the
Yeah,
clutch. We'll fact check that later. We'll
yeah.
stat check that later.
But yeah,
Your favorite topic du jour, the New York Knicks. You said it. 12-2 with Anunoby. They're fourth in net rating since time. Defensive rating has improved from nearly 117 to 111.9. That puts them, I believe, fourth, third, top five. And Tom Thibodeau is smiling. The Knicks
yeah,
are
it's weird,
happy.
huh?
Spacing looks great. Randall obviously hurt right now. But I think they'll do okay. They have enough depth, I believe, there. Now you're obviously going to buy this. So I don't even know what I'll ask, but Mitchell Robinson comes back healthy. And he's able to provide the defense that he did earlier on. Randall recovers okay. Um, Now the C word is like a lofty word to use for any team. But do we start to use it with the Knicks? Are they a outside contender? Are they a dark horse contender as currently constructed now with Anunoby?
Okay, yeah, they are. I mean, I want to be so hesitant. I want to be like, oh, I have to wait until I see the playoffs. But they're playing unbelievable basketball. They're looking like these hard nosed guys that no one wants to face. Behind our superstar in Jalen Brunson, who I'm hoping is the snub for All Star starter, is going to spur him on to do even better things for the remainder of the season. And it just fits. The flow is great now, and you watch games. I'm seeing like Deuce McBride, and we're seeing Grimes and other guys hitting shots. Dante DiVincenzo is looking like Steph Curry of late. He's been huge for us. If they get through, hopefully OG is back for the next couple of games. I know Randall's going to be out at least a month. Hopefully OG comes back. I know we got the Lakers Saturday. I'm not sure who else we've got the rest of this week, and they can stay steady. Maybe they don't win as many games without Randall. Randall is a big part of what we do. But if they have a pretty even split, say, I don't know, what's he out for, like 15 to 20 games, if they're somewhere in like the like 14-6 range in those sort of games, something like that, I think that is more than good. They're legit chasing the second seed. The Bucks are now going into they have the most difficult remaining schedule in the NBA. They're only a game and a half back on them. They are in a really good flow, and I don't see why you could rule them out. Maybe that will change when we get to the playoffs. The playoffs are so different from the regular season, but everything they're doing currently, if we have our two bigs in Mitchell Robinson and Hartenstein, we have our star in Jalen Brunson, we have our defensive difference maker in OG, we have our shot makers. Like, all the makeup is there for a championship team. I still feel like they're just a little bit short, but I think I would be confident enough in them at least pushing any series to 6 or 7 games with any team, probably other than the Celtics.
Yeah, 100%. And I I really think that if you can channel this level of defensive intensity um beyond January, because that's kind of the tough part about looking at these stretches is I mean, you already mentioned how many high scoring games. This is January is a weird month. February is also a weird month, and you see a lot of anomalies in January and February. But I think some of it you can pull away is real, and I think when you have like an absolute stopper on the perimeter, like OG, like that changes the dynamic of your team. That changes what you're able to do. That changes how aggressively players can stay on their guys, especially on shooters. If you can stay down on the corners, how much help you really need to rotate, how much more staunch your defense can be overall when you can have that guy be on the other team's best player. And then that's not even to mention like the presence of Mitchell Robinson if he can come back to the defense you get in the paint there. Like combining those two guys, and I wonder if McBride will also be able to get more opportunity to get more minutes because like his defense, I love the effort that he brings on the perimeter. Like they could be evolving their culture here defensively in a way that I think will make strides in the playoffs. I don't think this is just a January, February thing, but you never know how different it'll look. I mean, when they play the Celtics, they always give them a hard time, but the tough thing is, stopping them.
Giving them a hard time and actually beating them are two different things, unfortunately.
Last season, I want to say they went 3-1.
We got them soon.
Last season, I want to say the Knicks went 3-1 against the Celtics. This season, not been as great.
When do we have the Celtics? We have the Celtics sometime soon. Maybe it's next week. Maybe we have the Celtics.
February 24th.
Okay. Yeah, that's a game I'm looking forward to and watching and like seeing like obviously we won't have Randall, but hopefully we'll have everyone else and seeing how they match up with Boston.
Yeah. And real quick, I don't think you mentioned Cleveland.
Yeah.
Your darling Cleveland. 12-3.
They're doing great things.
They did a nice bounce back. I mean, Mitchell's
beat the Clippers
28,
too.
8-5. They did. And that's people are starting to talk about 8. They beat the Clippers, and they haven't even gotten Mobley and Garland fully back into the fold, just getting them healthy. And the team is second in net rating in the stretch. They're now 4th in the East. We already had that conversation a month and a half, 2 months back, where things are kind of middling. Does the vibe continue to go south? And somehow Mitchell is still in trade conversations, not in real trade conversations, but in hypothetical ones in everyone else's mind, even though the team is having success. Have they shown enough? Like, can they, if they keep pulling this rate, top 4, top 5, top 6, do we have a little more confidence in them to, take that narrative away? Is that a narrative we're still going to see in the summer? Is it just because it's Cleveland?
Yeah, I guess it's always because it's Cleveland and it's such a small market. You think that they could get bullied almost out of certain guys. I think it's just going to come down to the playoffs again. Like, obviously, we want to wait and see. Like, obviously, the rotations and what they've done without Mobley and Garland has been unbelievable. Can they figure that out with Mobley and Garland? If they can, wow, that's kind of scary to think of. And then let's see what they do in the playoffs, because obviously they looked great last year, and then they really crapped out in the playoffs. Like, it was a really disappointing performance of them, not just because the Knicks are awesome. It was just a really disappointing performance for them. So it's kind of a wait and see on them, what they've done, what they've been able to do. Sam Merrill, absolutely unbelievable. What he's doing in Cleveland. Yeah, it's just kind of wait and see. How do they look once they have Garland and Mobley back, and how do they look when they get to the playoffs? That's the big thing with them.
Yeah, and I'll say now that I'm definitely not worried about that being an issue, because I mean they've shown that they've been good. The on-off numbers don't indicate anything about them being better with just one of their bigs or one of their guards. They're still just as good with both of them there. And I think getting through that negative stretch that we saw later in the season, getting through the adversity of having some injuries, I mean that could be a big thing for them. But I think they'll stay 4th in the East. I mean, we'll get right to it now. Like Embiid, man, where do we go with that?
Well, I mean, like we're talking, let's just talk about it on the whole. We'll talk about the idea that the load management. It's the NBA brought this in because they wanted guys to play more. They wanted the guys to not be sitting out back to backs just so they don't potentially get injured. It's not about forcing guys who are injured to play. It's about making guys play just to not when they're avoiding games, just to not get injured. That's what this is about, and I still believe in it. I still like the 65 game rule, but arguably we saw the negative side of it last night. Joel Embiid played against Golden State Warriors when he clearly was not ready to play. He was clearly in pain. He was clearly not able to do Joel Embiid things. We saw that throughout the game. The difference in the shots that he was taking, not getting to the line at all. Like, that's not Joel Embiid. And then ultimately, at the end of the game, Kuminga falls on his leg. Looks like it's going to be a new injury that could keep him out for who knows how long. A guy his size with that sort of knee injury, that could be something more serious than it would be for others. Hopefully it's just like a hyperextension, nothing too major, but we see the good and the bad. I still believe in it, but last night was a mistake by Embiid and the 76ers putting him out on the floor.
Yeah, I hopefully it's not bad. It looks like the mechanism of the injury didn't look like it wasn't like twisting, it wasn't hitting from the side, it was just right on top. Speaking of load management, I am like actively losing my voice. So excuse me if I'm like coughing here for anyone on YouTube right now. But it's really tough. And I'm surprised you still agree with the rule. I don't know. It was always weird with me, like to put objective standards on what was always going to be a very subjective award. Like we were always going to have nuanced conversations about like who deserved the MVP and why, and we have all the data behind stats and everything like that. And what was taken into account always in that argument was, hey, like did you play 30 games? You play 40 games. If you didn't play enough, and enough was never like a objective number, then maybe you're probably not going to get discussed in that realm. And I don't know if that's necessarily. I don't think it's fair also to like say like that's why he got injured. I think also, and I don't think that. Do you really think Embiid's like reading tweets and being like having his feelings hurt that people are saying he's soft and then decides to play? No, Embiid wants to play, and that if the 76ers are losing a couple games, like he's gonna want to come back and keep them in in contention for a top 4 seed, and that's what players do, and it's just unfortunate that he's just going to be injury prone, and if you're playing the Warriors and you're feeling a little sore, like I just wouldn't ever risk doing that, because somehow I need to look this up, but I feel like players disproportionately get injured by the Warriors, not even necessarily because they're dirty, but it always is like a Warriors game. I feel like where a star gets injured. I'm just thinking of LeBron's ankle. I'm just thinking about Kawhi's hamstring. Or was it his quad? It was his quad. There's just so many memories that come to mind with it.
Yeah, we got bad look at that. Yeah, I mean, even if you say like, yeah, fair enough, he gives it a go, they should have pulled him. And for the most part, they were doing better when he wasn't playing as well. Like it was very clear. I know it's Joel Embiid, and you want to they were close in the clutch. You want to get him back out there. He's going to make you a few baskets and things like that. But they were actually making runs without him. They were playing better without him. He clearly wasn't himself. So just a bad decision. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. Hopefully he's not out for too long. It's nothing crazy. That's the hope we have to have. With Embiid, obviously you're always worried. They know that he doesn't care about winning MVP. He cares about being healthy for the postseason. That's the most important thing. And in terms of the load management as a whole, I know Tyrese Halliburton came out complaining about it because it makes a big difference in money if he can make All NBA or not. I think it was said on TNT last night. It's a difference of like $50 million to him.
It's wild. Yeah,
like that is insane. So maybe 65 games. Maybe they could bring it back to 60 games. Maybe that's fair enough. I don't think anyone who's played less than 60 should be considered to like be the best player in the league that year or be in that sort of conversation.
Yeah, 65 felt like
yeah, maybe I think
high.
I think 60 games is a bit more fair. Anything over 60 kind of looks sort of normal. But like people like go back and they talk about the likes of like MJ and guys like that who are always playing the 82 games, but at the same time, the careers of players are longer these days. Players are still performing late into their 30s these days. They weren't really doing that back in the 80s and 90s. Maybe that's because the game's less physical. Maybe we just made advances in science. Guys know when they need to sit out. Guys know for certain things. Yeah, there's that element of guys sitting out for no reason and just to protect them from injuries, which is stupid. You can get injured doing anything. So that I hate that side of it. But I think you can't really compare it just straight up like that. I do still like the rule, but I think maybe 60 games is a bit more fair than 65.
Yeah. Where do we go in terms of trades here? Do we jump into trades?
Well, we got to talk about me being right first.
Yes.
We did forget about that.
Yes.
Adrian Griffin was fired. And actually, I had the TikTok up of me talking about how they were going to regret hiring him. And as soon as he got fired, someone commented yep, and now he's gone. And I was like, I love how this guy just remembered that video and made sure to comment to let me know that I was correct. Sometimes we get it right. I didn't say he was gonna get. I was surprised he got fired mid-season. I thought that they were like, because they were what 30-13 when he got fired. I figured they'd get to the postseason and then they'd struggle and then he'd get dismissed. But he is gone. He clearly was the wrong choice. Apparently coming out that apparently he was the choice for because Embiid didn't, or not Embiid, because Giannis didn't want Nick Nurse. That was the big thing. Giannis was very
Yeah,
determined to not have Nick Nurse, which is just
wild.
seems strange. But clearly Griffin lost the changing room. I think it all started when that whole bust up with Terry Stotts. That felt like a really strange situation that was really swept under the rug quickly. I think that was the beginning of the end for him, even though that happened like way back, and ultimately lost the dressing room. And now he's out of a job, and now we have Doc Rivers in Milwaukee.
And let's address the Doc Rivers thing. So I feel like everyone's immediate thought is, really, like, you brought in Doc, the guy who's broadcasting because he sucked in Game Sevens and has the worst winning record in Game Sevens, blah blah blah. Yeah, and I think that was my first thought too. And I really had to like sit down and think, okay, is this recency bias? What is Doc's like body of work? 235 games with 76ers. Doc coached the 76ers to a top 3 defensive rating. And ironically, his 7-year tenure with the Clippers, which was better, 108.6, was only good for 10th, but that just shows you just how much the offense has improved just in the last 4 or 5 years. It's insane. But I think he's demonstrated over the years that he is fundamentally a very good coach. I mean, he's going to coach you to a good record in the regular season. We know that he's very well respected, and it's won't even get into the fact that he was an advisor for Adrian Griffin, which I didn't know until after that.
Yeah.
Which is obviously you don't want to assume that like that was like some sort of sly thing, but Doc was one of the guys that they considered for the job, and he is a mentor to many coaches, so it's not that weird, it's not that nefarious, but it is pretty funny that he's now taking his job. But I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of obvious things that Doc will do better here. I mean, this is all just about the defense, honestly. Like, they're 24th in opponent fast break points. They've really lost their touch for what Budenholzer did, which was forcing bad shots, living with threes, but really protecting the paint. They've changed their philosophy to be way overly aggressive on pick and rolls, and they're one of the worst teams at defending the pick and roll now because of it. Their bench, with the way that they run Bobby Portis out there, is the worst defensive rating in the league because of all the blitzes that they do. There are just so many small adjustments that they can make, that Doc can make, and likely will make, because if people are talking about it, I'm sure as hell that he's going to be making those small adjustments. But they are right now, like, are they the best offense in basketball? Are they the second, third? I mean, they're up there in terms of who do you want to face in tonight? And that's even an offense that still has some small kinks with their spacing, with getting the timing right on pick and rolls, with where they want Giannis to be if they're getting Dame set up on the top of the key. Like, there are little things too that they haven't even gotten better at. So they just need to get average on defense, and everything's going to be fine. And all that to say, like, I think Doc is going to come in. He's going to stop the bleeding. He's going to patch everything up. He's going to make things better. And the Bucks are going to be able to walk out of the hospital alive. But I don't know if this is a grass is greener thing. When they got rid of Bud, they're like, all right, things are going to get better now. We're going to get a new innovative system in. I can't help but think back and think, like, did you really do better now that you're with Doc Rivers? In terms of the issue was flexibility in late game situations in the playoffs. And that was ultimately the demise of Coach Bud. And here we are now with Doc, who, great coach, but that is literally the reason he is broadcasting right now, is for his inability to be flexible in late game playoff situations. So
Yeah, they've kind of gone full circle. They've gone full circle and come back to kind of a similar spot to where they were at. My instincts when I saw the hiring was like kind of it makes sense. Like who else is out there? Who else are you gonna get mid season? This is a
Makes
guy
sense.
who has
Please come back. Adrian Griffin won't bother you anymore, I promise.
It's like he's gonna come in. He's gonna demand respect. He's won a title before, obviously a very long time ago. Different situation now, but also a defensive mind. That's what the big thing is. Respect from the players and a guy that is capable of coming in. And what you expect is to get the most out of what he has available to him in terms of defense, which is the big thing for the Bucks. And maybe he'll be able to make adjustments with the guys that he has now within this team to make better decisions when we get to the playoffs. Or maybe it's just that Eric Spoelstra is too good. Maybe, like, who knows? But we'll see what happens. I mean, he's a big reason why the Bucks moved on from Budenholzer, the inability to get past him. Now I'm following your pace with the coughing.
I don't know what's going on.
But yeah, who else are they going to get? Doc can have a good impact here. He could hopefully turn them into a subpar middle of the pack defense, and if he gets them to that level, that really does change things.
Yeah, and you know what's going to be the biggest difference between what Doc did before is it's not Ben Simmons, it's not James Harden, it's Damian Lillard and Giannis. And I think the DNA there and player makeup and how they approach clutch situations and how they approach the game and how you see them face pressure is very different. Mm-hmm. And it comes down to what's happening on the court ultimately. And those two players, maybe there will still be some issues with the spacing. Maybe they won't really get to that full potential without, you know, someone who's as innovative as maybe a Nick Nurse type of coach. But I think that the outcome would be a little bit different. And Doc did not have the luxury of having guys who honestly were clutch. And Spoelstra looks great when Jimmy Butler is playing like Michael Jordan in the playoffs and is willing the offense to buckets down the stretch. Like, Spoelstra looks like a pretty clutch coach. I mean, obviously there's a myriad of things that he's actually doing that caused the Heat to win, but you know, things like that on the offensive end. You know, Doc. It's not Doc's fault that Ben Simmons couldn't make a layup. It's not Doc's fault that Harden just oscillated between being literally the worst player in a series and the best player and not knowing like what kind of player he's going to get night to night. But that's not going to happen in Milwaukee. They're going to be fine. And you're absolutely right. This guy is going to be the most stable. Like I said, stop the bleeding. You paged a trauma doctor. He came in, he patched up the bleeding, and you're going to be fine. He's not a plastic surgeon. He's not going to make this pretty, but you know, I think the Bucks are going to survive and they'll have their chance to make it to the final.
Yeah, sure. Totally agree on that.
Quick hitters, trade rumors. Don't have a ton right now, actually, that are real. I mean, talked about the DeJounte one. That apparently it's official offer. DeJounte for, I love the wording of it too. Lakers are willing. They're willing to trade D'Angelo Russell and Shafino Hood, who I've literally never seen a minute played, and future draft compensation. So not like two bona fide first one. Like, I guess we'll give you D'Lo, a guy who doesn't play, and future picks. Sure. Is that even close to enough for Murray?
I mean, it shouldn't be given what they put up for him.
It doesn't always work like that, but even right now, I mean, he's improved as a shooter too. I mean, he's taking some strides as an offensive player.
Yeah, you'd like to think they'd get a player that they actually want in return, that actually would fit into their roster at least. I mean, the Hawks fans, made it very clear last night that they don't want D'Angelo Russell on their team. That was brutal. Those chances was obviously pretty funny, but
oh man,
I don't know. That trade just doesn't seem like it's realistic unless they're gonna give the two first round picks. That's the only way I see that trade going down.
Yeah, I don't think it's happening. Rockets shopping draft picks for Mikal Bridges. Give the Nets back their future. If if that happens, I am very, 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 very intrigued with the Rockets. I'm already enamored by how much better they've gotten. I mean, Şengün, dude's like really. I mean, all the casuals out there now, Şengün fans, like he's made everyone aware of his presence.
You heard it here first, baby. This podcast, you heard it here first.
And I mean, if they get in Bridges now, like the makeup of that team, that becomes something different. I think they vault themselves over a couple teams down the bottom of the West. How good? Let's play that game. How good do they get? They're better than the Pelicans. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like you look at that, like what we say, would they include Jalen Green in that deal?
No way.
No. So what are you looking at then? Are we looking at Jalen Green going to the bench, and we got Fred VanVleet, Mikal Bridges, Brooks, Jabari, Şengün?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think so. I mean, it's yeah. I mean that is a tough pill to swallow, but I don't think they're giving away a guy that still you have a chance that he gets consistent. He becomes your. I mean, worst case scenario, like he becomes Zach LaVine. That's a pretty good worst case scenario for the guy you draft in the lottery. But all right, let's play that game. So they get Mikal Bridges in that lineup. Are they better than the Jazz?
Yeah.
Yes. Are they better than the Lakers?
Yeah. Regular season, yeah.
Yeah. They better. Yeah. I know. Better than the Pels? Yes. Yes.
Just
yes. I say yes. Better than the Mavs?
Yeah.
Yes. I say so. Suns, that's where I'm capping it.
No, they're not there yet. They're not there. They're not at the Suns level there. No, I don't think.
Kings.
The Kings and Pelicans are about two different ones because they've shown themselves to be one of the best teams in certain games and then one of the worst teams in other games. Just like the Rockets as well. They're just really, really, really high and also really low teams. They're weird. They're weird teams.
That's what happens when you have inconsistent defense.
Yeah.
I mean I think that would fundamentally really shape what their identity is moving forward. I mean they have really Amount Udoka, they've really the way that they've established themselves defensively this season has been amazing. But to get Bridges in that mix too. So that's interesting. And even the Nets, I mean they get their I don't know how many picks they get back. Maybe they get all their picks back. But I mean the Rockets are not a team that are trying to get more draft capital. They don't want to draft.
They've got their young guys. They're looking to find the other pieces to build towards the future now. It's not about the draft anymore for them.
Yeah. All right. You are the Detroit Pistons GM, sitting in your office.
Oh my God. I haven't killed myself yet.
you're on your fourth drink of the game. Barely awake. You get a call from Chicago.
I'm just seeing this right now that Shams is reporting that the Houston Rockets are star hunting. That's what they're out there doing.
Okay.
That's from Shams. He put that article in the Athletic. So that's interesting as we speak of that.
It's happening. It's happening. But so you're sitting there. You get a call from Chicago, and I want to offer you LaVine, but it's going to take Bojan and one of your core four. I floated that a few weeks ago, and apparently that's a real thing right now. Do you immediately throw the phone down? End the call?
Depending on who I'd have to give.
Not Cade, for sure.
Not Cade, not Duran.
Not Duran, not Asar.
No, I think of it. I think Jaden Ivey and Bogdanovic. I don't think that's insane. I mean, I would understand it. I'd probably I always want to be the believer in that those guys are going to come good, that sort of way. So I probably would slam down the phone. But obviously, I'm not a GM. They can't speak with the passion. And maybe if you say, okay, Jordan Ivey, Bogdanovic, you give us Zach LaVine. Okay.
Year 2. Jaden Ivey, the guy who's supposed to figure things out next to Cade, and Cade, who's still not some prolific perimeter shooter. Jaden Ivey shooting 34% from 3. And and he's averaging 3.5 turnovers to 5 assists. A guy that, interesting idea next to Cade, but really curious, this is not, Monty has been inconsistent with him throughout the season. Curious to me. I don't think they'll do it. Because the reason I don't think they'll do it is because as soon as I read that report, I jumped out of I was like, please, that's the best possible deal I think you can get for LaVine. I mean, obviously LaVine's a far, far better player than Ivy, but the chance at a blue chip player for, a guy who on a team that's ultimately finished, that's an unheard of deal, and it's probably too good to be true. But the Pistons, a team that, they need something. They need something to galvanize this team. They need someone who can lead on the offensive end. Literally anything. They need anything. But yeah, that is another crazy trade. Do you have any other crazy offers that I've missed?
No, I hadn't seen anything too legit that we haven't really spoken about already, but obviously we're heading into the final week of the trade window, so things will obviously start to heat up from probably the next couple of days. So it's tomorrow week, Thursday week is when this when the trade deadline is. So things are going to start to heat up now as we move towards that, and it's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on. You almost expect to see a trade every day at this stage.
Yeah, this is 2:12 right now, Wednesday, January 31st. I would not be shocked if at 3 p.m. today we get our Bridges trade for the Rockets, because that's always what ends up happening when we record. But I think this is a good time. We wanted to talk about take a look back, look at all the trades that's been happening over the past couple of decades, and we won't have a chance to evaluate how good this season will be because we've already had a couple of good ones. I mean, Anunoby to the Knicks. What if the Knicks do something crazy at the end of the season? That would be looked back as one of the best in season trades. Siakam to the Pacers too. I mean, two really high quality. One an All NBA player, another one of the best defensive players in the league, if not the best perimeter, going at the deadline. That's not super common as much as we think it is. But take it away, Ronan. How are we doing this?
We're gonna put them into. We're gonna go for a tier list. So I've made up a list of 10 trades, 10 of the biggest trades of all time. We've got 5 from summer trades / draft trades and 5 mid-season trades. So a little mix between the two, and we're gonna put them into a tier list. So I think I'll put it out to you. I'll do it by when they happen. So 2 of them are from back in the 80s and 90s, and the rest are since 2000. So we're not going too far back into
you went deep
into the history. Just ones that were just turned out to be pretty big. To start out, I think I already know what tier this is going into, but the Chicago Bulls trade in 1987 to move up in the draft and get Scottie Pippen. They traded the 8th pick, which was Olden Polynice. Who the hell is he? Future draft compensation to the Supersonics, and they get Scottie Pippen, who wins 6 titles, 7-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA, 8-time All-Defensive, and the man who made it happen with MJ.
We're doing draft night trades too. I mean, that has to be. I'm thinking in my head. I mean, obviously you have the Luka draft night trade. You have trying to think of other ones. Kobe. So I mean that's got to be one of the best. That's A tier draft night trade. If I'm just thinking draft night trade,
S tier. We got S tier. We'll go S tier with that. We gotta have an S tier here. I think there's no doubt that has to be up at S tier. Like Pippen, the type of player he was, the greatest number 2 of all time, would have been arguably could have been one of the greatest number 1s of all time had he not landed in Chicago, but wouldn't have had the success in terms of titles if he had done that.
Yeah, my man is dusting off the 80s. I thought I did real well going over the last 2 decades, and I just looked at in-season trades, but we're pulling out.
Yeah, we're going way back here now. Number 2 now. This is the last one from pre-2000s. This is a mid-season trade. 1995, Clyde the Glide Drexler to the Houston Rockets for a couple of nobodies and a first rounder. He got the team back on track, who were flailing after winning the title in 94. Was named to the All-NBA team averaged 21.5 points, 9.5 boards, 6.8 assists in the NBA Finals, and they won back-to-back titles.
Fair. Yeah, that's S tier for sure.
Like that's
when I was
crazy.
looking
Like
at
what he did
in season trades, it's like, all right, what immediately happens? So how much better does the team get? Does that bring them to another level? Do they win a championship? So, yeah, I'm with it.
Yeah, like it's got to be S tier. Maybe you'd have like what Pippen did at a higher level, but in terms of a mid-season trade to have that sort of impact and make that sort of difference for a team, like we haven't really seen that too many more times. Bringing it up then to 2001, not quite as big of an impact, but Dikembe Mutombo traded to the 76ers for Tony Kukoc and 3 other randomers. Defensive Player of the Year that year. Helped the team reach the NBA Finals. Averaged 14, 14, and 3 blocks in the playoffs. All NBA second team. Obviously, they didn't win the title, but in terms of a mid-season trade, the 76ers obviously were the number 1 seed at the time, but he felt like a real difference maker for them going to the finals, and that's not something that Philly have been too good at over the last 20 years.
Yeah, I'll put that in the A for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think A is fair because obviously they didn't win, and it was kind of it. Obviously, he stayed there for a few years, but that was kind of the impact of him in that mid-season time. What was really big for them.
Yeah, for in season, that's the hardest part, and I'll interject about in season stuff. If you go back, because I could talk all day about the different trades we've had just since really 2013, 14. But more so in the past 5 years. If you look between 2003 to 2013, the only All-Stars that were traded in season was basically like old Chris Webber and like a few other guys like out of their prime, like Allen Iverson, other guy like when they're out of their prime, like real big move, big splashy in season moves didn't really happen for that decade. Like the player, like objectively, the player movement in the past 5, 6, 7 years has just been insane. And another part of that, so you can think about Shaq and Nash got traded in 2004, or did I just steal one of yours?
No.
Okay, good. But not in season trades. Not a single team that won a championship during that 10-year period made significant in season trades for any stars.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, the best teams don't really make big moves in season. They figured it out during their off seasons. That for the most part is how it works. Like there's not too many examples you can think of a team that made a big splash in season and then went on to win the title. That doesn't really happen too often.
Yeah. Can I nominate one?
Go.
2020, 2021, Drew Holiday to the Bucks.
Oh,
win the championship.
That was a mid-season trade.
It was. It was
wow.
in November.
I wasn't. Did not think that. Yeah, that's
so easily forgotten about in-season trade. There's only two, and that's really the only major one.
Yeah, I think. Ooh, do we got to put that the S tier?
I mean, they won. We
put Clyde. They went and won. They went and won the
yeah.
title. He was a big part of that. He really boosted up their defense, and look what we've seen since he's left. So yeah, I think we have to put that in the S tier.
Drew gets in the S tier.
He does.
Drew. Okay.
There you go. That was that. Yeah, he deserves that. They won that title, and you saw the difference now that he's gone there, and he's hoping to be the impact guy to add a title to Boston as well now this year. Okay, mid-season 2004, Rasheed Wallace to the Detroit Pistons for again a couple of nobodies I've never heard of and a first-round pick. They won the most unlikely NBA championship ever, as it's often described. They beat the Kobe Shaq Lakers. He put up 26 and 13 in a Game 4 win in the NBA Finals. Final piece, apparently. That's often how he's described. The final piece for that Detroit team to go on and win the title. Where would you put him?
I mean, if anyone pulls, that was in season.
That was in season.
That's S tier.
Yeah, I mean
that's one of just. I think we're talking I have one more, and I don't even think it counts as much because I mean Wallace made a real massive impact on that.
Yeah, and like the title, like, like that lowly Pistons team, that them beating the Lakers, like that was just insane, and a lot of people, and probably justified that it's regarded as like the most unlikely title win of all time.
So yeah, absolutely S tier.
We got a lot going on in the S tier here.
Well,
We're
I think
being high
it
here.
has to be like if you make a real impact on a championship, it's the relativity of what I mentioned is I mean besides him, no one else in that decade who won a championship made a big trade like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So we've got 4 or 5 so far in the S tier. We got Mutombo in the A tier, which is fair. Have you got one
yeah.
more to nominate there before I get to the rest of mine, or will I keep going?
Marc Gasol, 2018-19. They already got Kawhi
Ooh,
Leonard.
yeah.
They already got
That
Kawhi Leonard, but they solidified their front court with Marc Gasol, and they won the championship that year.
to replace Pirtle, who they lost in the Kawhi trade. Yes, yes, of course. I'd say A. I don't think S. I think
Yeah,
A is right for that Marc Gasol trade. But obviously a really smart move from them, and he did have a huge impact in Toronto.
yeah. That's that upgrade over Jonas wasn't really and still is not really your interior defender, but they had to go up against the likes of Embiid, to go up against the likes of what the Warriors were bringing, and they needed a guy like him. Yeah, I'll give that the A.
Yeah,
He's not the S that Kawhi would have been, but he
yeah,
was in the middle of the
yeah, for sure. And then summer trade, Kevin Garnett to the Boston Celtics for Al Jefferson, 3 or 4 other nobodies, 2 first-round picks. Comes in, All NBA first team, Defensive Player of the Year, NBA champion, and he was ultimately part of the package that brought them Tatum and Brown as well. Something
Really?
else to think of. Yeah, the two picks from the Nets.
Oh yes. Or were those? I thought those were Boston's own picks, or were those the Nets picks? Were those the Nets picks?
As far as I'm aware, they were the Nets picks. Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting. Do we say Kawhi? If we're nominating him, we're nominating Kawhi,
I got
and it's
Kawhi later. Don't
and
you
it's
worry.
hard not to say that's an S because the Celtics obviously don't win a championship without Garnett. Um, this is hard to do tiers when you're comparing all that. I mean, they don't win a championship unless they trade for him, obviously. Um,
So
the
you
S
want to
tier is
say
getting kind
A
of
or do you
full.
want to put him in the S?
No, like I'm just saying A because we have somebody in S, and that's not how this works. I mean
Yeah.
that's an
Well,
all time trade.
we got to throw
It's
him
an
up
all time trade.
into S. Yeah. Yeah.
It's an all
That was
time
an
trade.
all time big time trade. Mid-season, Pau Gasol to the Lakers for Kwame Brown, 2 nobodies,
Yeah,
Marc Gasol, and 2 first-round picks. All NBA, All Star, 2-time champion. The impact on Kobe's legacy, which
yeah.
is huge, helping them to those 2 titles. They went to 3 straight NBA finals. Obviously, didn't win it the first year, but then won it the 2 years after that. I mean, I'm tempted to say S year. Maybe we put him in the A just because
Put it in the
he
A because
wasn't
it
Kobe.
wasn't like it wasn't an
Yeah,
immediate like they won a championship right after.
yeah,
But I'd say that's A. I mean that what they got him for nothing,
yeah.
and he is you know he's not the same player as Shaq obviously, but in terms of what they talk about when you talk about Kobe's legacy, you talk about Kobe and Shaq. You also gotta talk about Kobe and Pau.
Yeah,
Um,
and obviously it was kind of a win-win trade. Like, look at the impact that Marc Gasol ended up having in Grizzlies. Obviously, not the same level, but he's one of the all-time great Grizzlies. Maybe the best ever until we see what Ja and the likes of do.
I got a similar one, more modern one. Nuggets 2020-2021 season when the Magic are selling off everyone, they get Aaron Gordon. And unfortunately, due to injuries, that championship didn't come right away. But Aaron Gordon, undeniably a part of how the Nuggets are able to win this recent championship and still be a contender. Where do we put that?
Am I being mean here if I say B?
No, I think B is fair, but I think it's a similar like he was an in season trade, and the flash that we got before the injuries happened in Denver was like, wow, he like really unlocked them. And then when we got to see them all healthy, it was so clear like how integral he is, and such an unheralded player in this league. But the Nuggets, they're not a championship team without him, and they don't get him on that roster unless the Magic are selling off in the middle of the season. And now he's an integral part of that.
Yeah, for sure. Still, we'll go B tier just because it
He's
wasn't
not Pau
that,
Gasol. I'll go B. Yeah, we gotta fill out the B a little bit.
Yeah, we gotta give B there. Okay, obviously you mentioned this earlier, the Luka for Trae Young swap ultimately cost him a first round pick. Mavs got Luka, 4-time All NBA first team, 5-time All Star, been to the playoffs 3 times, out of the season averaging 32 points per game, career averages of 27.6, 8.6, and 8 assists, and he's still only 24. I think that's going to prove to be a genius move. For now, I think it's B tier, but I think when we look back in 10 years, it'll be S.
Yeah, I think that was, I'm going to give it B just because, like, the rest of the league was stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Kings were dumb. The Suns were dumb. The Hawks were dumb. Like, they did not see the potential in Luka that they should have, and the Mavs took advantage of that, which they did. I'll give it a B. But that still will always go down as like massive regret on the Hawks end, as we're nearing a time where we don't even know where Trae is going to go.
And Luka putting up 73 on them was also just helped it made it that little bit more fun. Well, here's an obvious S tier one. Kawhi Leonard to the Raptors for DeMar DeRozan, Jakob Poeltl, and a first rounder. I mean, he was only there for 1 year, but he won them a title. He was the Finals MVP. He was All NBA. Probably hit one of the most famous shots in NBA history, the first ever Game 7 buzzer beater. I mean, S tier. What like only for a year, but it got them everything they were never going to get without him.
Greatest rental of all time. Yeah. You know what's funny? So like I won't bring these ones up as nominations, but we have some other ones that never came to fruition, right? And this is such revisionist history. Looking at these guys and being like, oh, this is the greatest thing about, because Kawhi could have just not won a championship and then just left, and that would have been awful, obviously. 76ers that same season, they went all in. Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris. Where did that go? Then you look back to, obviously we saw KD, Harden, Irving, all of them over in Brooklyn. That Harden to Brooklyn trade, nothing happened there. So it's the rate of these in-season trades being successful or even happening at all, just super low. I don't have a great one, but I do have one I want to nominate. Maybe it will be a B, or maybe more likely a TBD. But Pacers acquiring Halliburton and Hield for Sabonis.
Ooh.
2021.
That's
TBD, but that could
TBD. Prove. Yeah, I mean, like, will we slip that down? Will we be harsh just for now and say like C or B? I think
wait and see.
Wait and see. We'll put it in C and we'll go wait, and we'll say wait and see. That I forgot about that mid-season. Yeah, that's a good move, and I think that's one that could ultimately have completely turned around this Pacers franchise, which is obviously absolutely huge. I got 2 more. One mid-season, one that could prove one of the ultimate win-win trades for both teams. So the win-win one first. SGA and Paul George swap places. Thunder also get Danilo Gallinari and 5 first-round picks and 2 swaps. Clippers got an all-star, a potential title winner. Thunder get a future MVP, a centerpiece of what they hope is going to be a future title team. I mean, if the Clippers end up winning a title with PG and the Thunder do the same with SGA, it becomes S tier and the ultimate win-win trade. But for now, what do you think? A, B?
Oh, I mean, if you
probably have to say we probably have to say B right now, do we? Given how injured Paul George has been and how Shea technically hasn't done anything yet.
If you don't get Paul George, you don't get Kawhi.
Yeah.
You don't get Kawhi in the room. You don't say, "Hey, Kawhi, I think this guy, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, is going to be great in a few years." He'll be like, he's like, no, he wouldn't be there. He wouldn't be there. So, had to happen. Can't do revisionist. Got to be an A in terms of at the time. At the time, that's an A. Looking back on it now, it's a B. You gotta go B because
Yeah. It
we
just
don't
falls into B
know.
because, like, for the most part, nothing has really happened yet, and like PG has been injured a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe C. I think that's a C. I don't know.
Let's go C for now. Let's
I'd say
do
C.
it. Yeah, let's
You
go.
know
We'll
why?
see and wait
You know
and
why?
see.
Because right now, yeah, I'm real happy that we're talking about this last like 20, 30 game stretch of the Clippers, like, and looking great and all that. But what did it take for them to get here? It wasn't like they got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, two of the best wing players in the past 2 decades, and all of a sudden they're like winning championships or like being super competitive. No, like they've been injured, they haven't been on the floor together, and it didn't work out. And SGA has led a OKC team out of nothing and young players to now being an MVP. Like that's so far I'd say they've lost that trade in terms of an organization.
Yeah, okay,
Totally
that's fair. And then the final one, just is thrown in just because it was like the biggest superstar mid-season trade of all time. Kevin Durant to the Phoenix Suns for Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, 4 first-round picks and a pick swap. Where are we ranking that?
I mean, that has to be, man. That is tough. I gotta say that's a B. It's a B. Like in terms of like being able to get him, they were not really on the radar at first. Like they were kind of that dark horse team at first, and the fact they were able to snag him, Kevin Durant, one of the best scorers of all time, the best scorer, in my opinion, of all time, and then put him next to Booker. Just that feat alone, we haven't seen like, and I still think they'll have a chance at a title with him, but that's we'll put that in B because they haven't won anything yet, and they didn't automatically, put it together last season. They got destroyed by Luka, but we'll put that in B for now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And that closed it out for me. Obviously, yeah, we had some a lot of S's early, and then we kind of moved down to being a bit more realistic. Yeah, I think there was a nice little blend amongst them. But it's interesting to kind of look back on these moves, and there was a couple there that I forgot about that you brought up, which are obviously huge moves.
Do you have C or F tiers? You want some F tiers or C tiers?
I mean, we got one. We got the wait and see. We got 2 and C, don't we? We have SGA, and we got the Halliburton trade. You got something you want to show for an F tier?
Yeah, just to make me sad. That same year where the Magic were selling, Bulls trade 2 first-round picks and Wendell Carter Jr. to the Magic for Nikola Vucevic in a desperate attempt to make a strong playoff push, and don't make the playoffs.
They tried hard, but yeah, that's that. Looking back on that now, yeah, that's pretty rough. That's probably
Franz Wagner and what is now Chet Howard, but could have been better. Who knows? But yeah,
it was F or D. F. You want F?
D. We'll go D. We'll go D.
Yeah, we don't have to go as low as F. We can give it the D marker there. I think that's fair.
Great. We need to put something in the D, and
we just had to have something that goes down that low. But hopefully there'll be a few more to add now as we look over the next week. I won't ruin your week this week. I won't quiz you. I have one prep, but I'll leave you be this week. We've got you a lot of information today. I know you're just trying to relax a bit, so I don't want to stress you out too badly.
I got no voice left. I'll log right off.
I think that's going to do it for today's episode. Trade deadline just over a week away. Teams struggling at the moment that we expected to be competing. The likes of the Heat, the likes of the Lakers, the likes of the Warriors. We got teams on great highs like the Clippers, like the Knicks. All-Star break is almost upon us. We'll find out who the reserves are going to be tomorrow. We've got that matchup between Steph Curry and Sabrina. That should be a lot of fun. They're trying to do new things with the All-Star game. Hopefully, things work out in that fashion. But keep your eye on Twitter. Keep your eye on Wolves. Keep your eye on Shams because some trades are going to be going down over the next week. But we'll have you covered for all that when they do. But for now, thank you, Chris, for joining me. Thank you all so much for listening. Remember, you like what you're hearing. We are everywhere at Coast to Coast NBA. And most importantly, remember, take every shot and love every moment.
Peace out.
Who has done it? No.
Steve Nash.
Yes, 7 times.
Halliburton.
Yes, 8 times.
Jason Kidd.
No.
This is a weird one. I'm thinking back to the year that Michael Jordan decided to play point guard. Michael Jordan?
No. We've got one guy who's still playing and 2 retired players who played the majority of their career in the 90s.
Okay. John Stockton?
Yes, 14 times.
Wow. LeBron?
No.
Whoa. Okay. Is Rondo still playing somewhere? Is he?
He's not. He's not. No, Rondo's not on the list.
He never did it. Wow. I would have thought he would have done it once. Chris.
Well, he might have done it once. I'm talking these guys have done it 5 or more times. That's it.
Chris Paul.
Chris Paul, yes, 10 times. 1 more to go. Played the majority of his career with the Charlotte Hornets in the 90s.
Dude.
This is a tough one. If I said this to you, he's the smallest player to ever play in the NBA. There you go.
Oh, dude, that was on the tip of my tongue, but I was like,
okay, I believe you.
All right,
look at that. That was
swear,
quick.
I was gonna say Muggsy Bogues, but
I didn't
know if that was gonna be super.
Yeah, I mean that was a safe one. Like those are all guys that love assisting. Those are assisting pros, so it wasn't too much trickery there for you.
But 5 or more times is wild.
Yeah. Stockton's leading with 14. Halliburton's already done it 8 times, so I back him to set that record. Because I just thought of this because he did it at the end the other night. He had 17 the other night with 0 turnovers. He's magic with that ball.
That's insane. There's nobody else in the league really has that same like flair to like as a passer right now. Like Halliburton will be kind of the only one.
Yeah.
He's last of a dying breed, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, people want to talk about how the traditional point guard is dying, but Tyrese Halliburton is trying to do whatever he can to make it live on.
Okay, well, I've survived another gauntlet. I've still yet to devise a gauntlet for you, but I promise when I do, it will be painful.
Oh, I expect nothing less. I expect to probably die and want to end the podcast forever after you finally come up with it. But that's gonna do it for today's episode. Thanks to Chris for joining me, and thank you all so much for listening. Keep an eye on those Jazz. Let's see what happens as we get closer to the trade deadline. One big domino has fallen. Will any more? We'll be here to cover it all for you. And most importantly, please remember that we are everywhere at Coast to Coast NBA. But more importantly, remember to take every shot and love every moment.
Peace out.